May I request you to deliver a speech in French here, Lily? Everyone in the office was taken aback by our director's unreasonable request. Why on earth does she need to deliver a speech in French right here? Who can perform such a miraculous job without any preparation? Clearly, it was a jab at my colleague, Lily. Her face turned pale, and she was on the verge of tears. I stepped forward to shield her. If I speak French, what will you do for me, huh? Fine, if you pull it off, I'll give up my position to you. But if you fail, I'll demote you alongside Lily. Once I accepted the challenge, I began my speech. The director was astonished by me and muttered, "That cannot be. How come someone like you?" "Because no one knows my real identity yet. I'm Thomas. I've just returned to the headquarters after a decade abroad. I intended to come back earlier, but my plan didn't go through as expected for some reason. Throughout my time abroad, I couldn't stop thinking about one woman. Her name is Lily. It's been 3 years since I last saw her, and I felt anxious all the way to the office. It was 10 years ago when I was assigned to the Europe office. On the day I left for abroad, Lily came to the airport to say goodbye and wish me luck. I confessed that I had romantic feelings for her and promised to nurture our relationship once I returned. Lily, with a shy smile, agreed. While I was working away from home, Lily and I constantly communicated through emails, sharing our lives, joys, and frustrations. I would eagerly return to spend cherished moments with Lily in the States. When I explained to Lily the reasons why I couldn't return to the States, no matter how much I wished due to business commitments from the Europe branch in the headquarters, she showed her unwavering support for me, saying, "I'm fine, so keep up the good work." Despite the distance lying between us, we maintained a strong relationship. However, things changed dramatically a year ago. Lily abruptly stopped sending messages. I was no longer surprised if I didn't receive a reply from her for several days, so I assumed that she was occupied with her work. There were times when she wouldn't bother to reply to my emails, but no matter how long I waited, there was no reply from Lily at all. I sent numerous messages out of concern, but received no replies. Her phone number wouldn't be reached either. I wondered what was happening with Lily. I directly negotiated with the president for permission to return to the headquarters. Initially, he obviously didn't want to grant my request to return to the headquarters, but he eventually approved it. I believe he considered the various achievements I had established during my 10 years of service. And so, after 10 years, I returned to the headquarters. A decade had passed, and the headquarters had moved into a different new building. Being abroad, I hadn't fully realized just how much the company had grown into such a significant enterprise. Witnessing the growth firsthand, I felt my 10 years weren't wasted. I entered the shiny new office and began greeting the head office supervisors. Since I returned to the headquarters due to my persistent request, and the office didn't have enough time to properly arrange my position prior to my arrival, I temporarily assumed the role of a rank-and-file employee. Thus, greeting my superiors was crucial for smoothly moving forward in my work. One thing I noticed while making my rounds was how the faces of the management had completely changed. It had been 10 years since I went abroad, so naturally, changes were expected. Some of the managers from that time might have been assigned abroad like me. I guess the company has been expanding into African markets and gaining profits from those ventures. While greeting the managers, I was searching for Lily at the same time. I had heard from HR that Lily was still with the company. Since my position wasn't finalized yet, they placed me in the department where Lily belonged for the time being, so she had to be somewhere in this new office. As I was finishing my rounds to most of the managers, I finally spotted a woman who I thought might be Lily. I looked at her, though I couldn't be sure it was Lily. She looked so different from the last time I met her, much thinner, almost like a different person. As I stood there in shock, she turned towards me. As our eyes locked onto each other, despite the shock, I managed to ask, "Lily, is that you?" Her hair was barely combed, tied back. She seemed not to wear makeup, with dark circles under her eyes. Now wearing glasses instead of contact lenses, her nails were long as if they hadn't been trimmed in a while, and her fingertips were rough and frayed. How had the once lovely Lily changed so much? 3 years ago, when we last met, Lily had been cute and stylish for our date. Why had she changed so drastically? Perhaps my shock was evident because Lily's face turned pale. At that moment, I regretted showing such a reaction, even though it was impulsive. Lily spoke with a strained voice, saying, I'm sorry. With that, she turned to flee. I hurriedly grabbed her hand and exclaimed, Wait, Lily. When I grabbed her hand, Lily stopped in her tracks. When I held her hand, it was shockingly thin, making me wonder if she'd been eating properly at all. I didn't know what had happened to Lily. When I grabbed her hand, she stopped in her tracks. She spoke in a faint, frail voice. I'm sorry I disappointed you. Didn't you expect me to look like this? No, not exactly. What happened? You haven't contacted me for a year. I'm sorry I caused you trouble. It's all right. Talk to me. I'm on your side, Lily. I spoke firmly, and Lily hesitantly looked up. She finally looked into my eyes. As I looked directly at Lily, tears welled up in her eyes filled with anxiety. Are you a rookie starting to work in this department today? Just then, a domineering voice addressed us. I could tell Lily was trembling upon hearing it. It was clear she was frightened of whoever spoke. Turning towards the source of the voice, I tried to identify the person. A woman, visibly haughty with heavy makeup and a strong perfume scent, approached. You are? Oh, you're going to work here without even knowing my name? Geez, I'm May, the next president of the company. She's the department head, Lily informed me in a weak voice. I found out later that her name is May. She's the daughter of the company's president, and it seems already decided that she'll take over the company. She wasn't around 10 years ago. Apparently, she transferred here a year ago and has been the department head since then. The timing of May's transfer coincides with when we lost contact with Lily. Could it be May who drove Lily to the point where she didn't even have the energy to communicate? Nice to meet you. I'm Thomas, and I'll be under your care at the headquarters from today. Pleasure to meet you. After my harmless greeting, May inquired, then a few questions. What's your career history? About 10 years at a branch office. Your education? That's when May asked about my education. I hesitated. There was a reason I didn't like to talk about my education. Can't say anything. Is there something embarrassing? Oh wait, you don't have a degree, do you? It's incorrect. Then why can't you answer? There are reasons I can't say. If you really want to know, go through HR and check my resume. That's fine. I'm not going to waste my time on it. You only have a high school degree or a Mickey Mouse degree anyway, May said with a smirk. Lily appeared as if she wanted to say something but seemed to frighten, her body shrinking, unable to make a sound. After comparing both me and a frightened Lily, May added, well, you two incompetents might as well get along, before turning her back and playing with her hair as she left. After May left, I asked Lily, you okay? Ah, thank you, she replied, seeming scared of May and trembling. Lily is serious about her work but is a timid woman. She likely finds it challenging to handle assertive women. I furrowed my brows and said in a troubled tone, she's pretty overbearing. I kind of don't like her. You shouldn't say that. Why? You don't like her either, right? I'm fine. I have to go back, excuse me. Why would she defend someone like that? May evidently has a dominant personality. Not everyone would be happy to work with her. I tried to show my empathy with Lily, but she returned to her office, and I don't understand why. Why would Lily say something like that? The reason probably lies in the situation of this department. I decided to observe while working throughout the day to understand what's happening here. To find out, I decided to spend the day working and observing the situation. On that day, I was handling the tasks I had been given. Since it's my first day, the workload wasn't too heavy. As the end of the day approached, employees started leaving. While others left, Lily was still at her desk working. Peeking over, I saw her desk cluttered with documents. With a somber expression and sighs, she edited documents on her monitor. Leaning over from behind, I peered at the monitor and asked, still got a lot left. Startled by my presence, Lily jolted and then turned around, answering in a flustered manner, Thomas. Lily hesitated on how to respond, her gaze wandering. Eventually, she answered, yes. I see. Are these documents something I can help with? I'll give you a hand. I haven't had much work today, so I've still got energy left. You look tired, Lily. Tell me what I can do to help. It's quitting time, Thomas. You can head home. I'm fine. You know I'm good at this sort of thing. I grabbed a nearby laptop, brought it over to the next table, then started looking through the pile of documents on Lily's desk. Lily looked flustered as I started going through the papers, but she was too tired to protest and soon started showing me what needed to be done. Could you read through these documents and correct errors in French? Got it. Let's see. Wow, what is this? I can't even read it. I skimmed through, but the awkward phrasing made me frown. It was hard to even understand what the author was trying to say. Lily, you're good at Japanese. That's why I've been tasked with reviewing these documents. I wish that were the case. I said it to cheer her up, but the reality was likely different. She was probably saddled with a workload that would never be completed by quitting time. Lily, drop the formalities, please. Oh, but... And why so formal all of a sudden? I've been worried since you stopped contacting me. Are you upset with me for not contacting you? Yeah, I am. At that, Lily looked like she'd seen the end of the world. That's right, someone like me. No, I'm mad because you're going through all this, and you didn't say a word to me. Lily looked startled. So you mean I was nothing for you? Nope, Thomas, I didn't want to bother you because you're far from home, and I didn't want to add any burden with my own problems. Finally, you stopped being so formal. I laughed, and Lily covered her mouth, embarrassed. Lily, you remember the promise? I know I've kept you waiting for 10 years. I remember. I was too eager. Even though we weren't officially together, I acted like your boyfriend just based on our emails. Funny, right? That's why it took me so long to come back. That's not true. I've always been thinking of you, Thomas, and I was so happy with your emails. Do you still love me after all this time? Yes, I do. I've always loved you, Thomas, so don't say things like that. Then from now on, count on me. Lily's eyes widened. Really? Of course, you've been through so much. Let me protect you from now on. Besides, I owe you more than I can ever repay. Tears started to form in Lily's eyes. I thought you were no longer interested in me. According to her, she thought I'd be disappointed seeing her in such a haggard state after I returned to our homeland. Honestly, I couldn't deny I was shocked by her appearance, and I acted weird, resulting in her feeling bad. Since I learned you'll be back, I wished for a total makeover, but I've been so swamped with overloaded work that I just didn't have the energy. I'm sorry. It's my mistake. I wiped away the tears from Lily's eyes. Can I fulfill my long overdue promise to you now? I hope it's not too late. I asked Lily, looking directly into her eyes. Hearing my words, Lily gazed back at me. Will you go out with me? Sure, Lily smiled through her tears. According to HR, I'll be working in the same department as Lily for a while. Regarding my position, they said they need some more time to finalize it, so I'll keep an eye on Lily from within the department. One day, as I observed the working environment around Lily, I witnessed May dumping more work on her. Lily, can you handle this for me? Lily looked uncertain. She probably didn't have the capacity to take on more work. If she accepted, she'd end up working late again. Seeing Lily in trouble, I approached the two and said, Lily seems to be occupied with her tasks right now. I'll find someone else who's free to help. I told you I want Lily to do it. It would be more efficient to pass it to someone who's available. Humph, cheeky. Fine, do as you like. I thought I heard May click her tongue as she left. She probably just wanted to dump more work on Lily rather than actually distribute it. What a bossy person. Thank you. It's no big deal. If you have more pending work, let me handle it. Didn't I tell you to count on me, right? Lily's smile made me feel at ease. I didn't mind working late as long as it meant seeing her happy. I started looking for someone to delegate the task given by May. As I did, quitting time approached us. I've been helping Lily with her pending tasks. But it seems May has assigned her a significant workload. I couldn't see the goal of this endeavor. However, we've both been working on it as a team. Today, I successfully declined additional tasks, so there's an end in sight. With diligent work within regular hours, we should meet the deadline in a few days. I thought I would put on my jacket and grab my business bag. Lily, let's go home. Wait a moment, I told Lily. Just as it was time to go, May approached us. I realized then what was probably happening. Lily likely always gets interrupted by May like this when trying to leave on time. Oops, are you leaving? You haven't finished your work yet. That's the way incompetents are, just like you. Well, Lily stammered, so I stepped forward. She still has a few days until the deadline. We can finish it within regular hours tomorrow or the day after, so I don't see the benefit of staying late today. Ha, are you trying to teach me what to do? Do you know who I am? Yes, you are the daughter of the president of this company. Then you should be aware of overtime pay, right? For the sake of your company, reducing unnecessary overtime is more beneficial. Forcing Lily to work overtime means your company is wasting resources. Do you understand? May probably couldn't find any answer to counter my argument. Despite appearing unsatisfied, she walked out. After May left, Lily sighed deeply in relief. Thanks, Thomas. You've saved me several times today. Never mind. May is awful, isn't she? She shouldn't be allowed to be selfish just because she is the daughter of the president. She's untouchable. Everyone just turns a blind eye. We don't want to get on her bad side. Probably everyone in the department is careful not to draw May's attention. That's why I tried to gently stop you when you first spoke of May. If you get involved too, Thomas, don't worry. I've dealt with many difficult personalities in my past. But watch your back. May has numerous negative rumors, and HR just follows whatever she instructs. She will not hesitate to demote you if you upset her, especially considering you are new here. Oh, really? Well, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I can't just watch you suffer. Lily began to regain her energy. Since the day I started blocking May from intentionally overloading her with tasks, she replaced her glasses with contact lenses, and her makeup became more vibrant as she started paying extra attention to enhance her beauty. Additionally, she dyed her hair and proudly showcased her newly polished nails. The dark circles under her eyes began to fade slowly. Lily was regaining her old charm. As long as May stopped harassing Lily, hopefully, Lily will get back to her old self, I thought. But I was wrong. May struck back at the morning toolbox assembly. Suddenly, May said, "Lily, come to the front." May unexpectedly instructed Lily to step forward in front of all the employees. Lily had no choice but to follow her instruction. "What's going on here now?" The employees began to murmur. "Silence, please," May said in an ice-cold tone, and the office fell silent. She then began to speak. "Our company is now focusing on business expansion outside the States. In connection, we've been opening our branches abroad, and many employees have been assigned to those locations. Consequently, we need to speak a second language to deal with our prospective clients in the set locations, right?" Her point made sense. But how does that lead to calling Lily out in front of all the employees? May continued. "Give us a speech in French, Lily," she instructed. The office buzzed again. The idea that just because of the increasing volume of worldwide trading, one should give an impromptu French speech was absurd. Without any prior notice or practice, this was clearly unreasonable and obviously a targeted humiliation of Lily. "We do business in France. You should be able to handle this much, right?" Unable to refute, Lily stepped forward, looking frightened. Lily has good French skills required for the business transactions, but she had one fatal flaw: extreme stage fright. Her lips were trembling. She was likely experiencing a mental block when suddenly put on the spot. Seeing Lily unable to speak, May snorted dismissively. "Do you know this girl only graduated high school?" At those words, Lily visibly shook. "Well, there's nothing wrong with being a high school graduate. The company prides itself on having staffed individuals with degrees from the best universities. It's nothing short of humiliation to make fun of and look down on her just because she is a high school graduate." Then I understood the root cause of May's persistent harassment. She was prejudiced against those with a lower educational background. For the company, a high school graduate who cannot finish work on time is considered an issue. Everyone here holds either bachelor's or master's degrees. Moreover, you're the only one who can't give a speech in a second language. Are you aware of this, Lily? Go ahead, try. If you fail, you're demoted. Lily clenched her lips. Lily seemed terribly cornered by May's challenge, tears welling up in her eyes. Impulsively, I stepped forward. Then I looked straight at May and said, "This is wrong." "What?" "Indeed, speaking a second language is an indispensable skill for smooth transactions with our clients. However, there are other ways to enhance such skills. Do you really want to put Lily on blast? Oh dear, how touching. The bottom feeders are sticking up for each other. I forgot, but you probably can't speak it either. Why do you say so? Do you only have a high school diploma, or at best, a Mickey Mouse degree? You speak French, huh? That's impossible. I frowned. How come she is so presumptuous? If I speak French, what will you do for me? Oh, fine. If you pull it off, I'll give up my position to you. But if you fail, I'll demote you alongside Lily. Keep your word, I responded to May in French. What? My fluent French made May uneasy and upset. The employees murmured in surprise as they learned that my French proficiency was at an advanced level comparable to that of a native speaker. Gee, why? May panicked. You didn't review my resume, did you? I have a bachelor's degree from the Université PSL in France. While other employees seemed to understand my French, a kind of surprise appeared on their faces upon learning about my educational background. Having spent my college years in Europe and worked there for 10 years, French had become like a second native language to me. But I haven't publicly proclaimed that I have a bachelor's degree from the Université PSL. When I mention it, I often receive sarcastic comments about being pretentious or being praised for being an elite. That's why I became evasive when asked about my educational background due to these circumstances. I had a hard time warming up to my colleagues in this company. In the midst of that, Lily reached out to me. Even though Lily knew about my educational background, she genuinely respected it and asked me to teach her French. She started learning French once she heard the company was planning to expand the business to Europe, but was struggling to improve alone. How happy I was that she reached out and relied on me when I was feeling isolated. It made me feel that someone needed me, saving me from loneliness. Gradually, I started spending more time with her and developed feelings. My feelings grow by the day. She's definitely shy. She might not be able to speak well in a situation like this, but she's a driven person, bound to succeed. Now, she speaks better Japanese than anyone else in this department. I know she can make the most accurate and meticulous Japanese text documents among us. Looking down at someone based on their education isn't right. Her extensive effort and enthusiasm toward her work should be acknowledged and duly praised. I uttered all this in French. When I spoke that fluently, a round of applause erupted from within the company. Given the company's focus on worldwide trading, it seemed that all the employees could understand my French. What? What is this? Meanwhile, May, who had been all talk, seemed to understand nothing. Seeing her as the only one out of the loop was somehow satisfying. Lily and I exchanged a smile. I then wrapped up the toolbox meeting by saying, "That's it. Thank you all for your time." Thomas, the president, put a grim look on his face as he learned what had happened. Hearing the applause for my speech, the president approached us to inquire what happened. Afterward, Lily and I headed to the president's office and explained the situation to him. Lily was able to report to the president that she was being harassed by May, habitually given unreasonable tasks. For Lily, my speech may have served as her security blanket, making her feel protected and assured. May boasted a lot, but she isn't proficient in French. I'm not saying she cannot understand French, but her skill isn't good enough for a business setup. Consequently, the documents May prepared for the French-speaking clients often returned for review, and Lily had been the one correcting them. I responded to the president's words, "It's all true, Mr. President." "That's a lie. I fixed them myself." "No, there's never been a single time when my document was returned for being inadequate." May clung to the president, trying to save her pride. However, the truth never tells a lie. Indeed, May didn't understand the morning speech. Furthermore, the original documents she asked Lily to review are clear evidence of who is telling the truth. Startled, May reacted to being called. "You've been quite dismissive of him, but let me tell you, Thomas is a former branch manager of our Europe office." "What?" May froze. A branch manager is a position higher than a director, meaning I held a more prestigious position than May until I returned to the headquarters. At his age? How is that possible? You've been getting by and being shrewd, but your time is up. You can't grow as long as you keep pushing your mistakes onto others and acting as if those mistakes never happened. You need to learn from your own mistakes, reflect on your actions if you want to be my successor. May's lips quivered. Either she was stunned by the career of the person she had been belittling or felt inferior to a genuine elite unlike herself. You've been getting by and being shrewd, but your time is up. You can't grow as long as you blame your mistakes on others and act as if those mistakes never happened. You need to learn from your own mistakes and reflect on your actions if you want to be my successor. But I've been desperately trying to succeed you, Dad. Perhaps May felt the pressure of needing to be the most capable successor. Maybe she was raised to be the business successor, knowing everyone is expecting and at the same time pressuring her to obtain a high-level education. So, even though she wants to ask someone, she can't do it because her pride doesn't permit her to do so. On the other hand, her mindset and attitude go in the wrong direction just to maintain her high status, and perhaps as her father, the president understands the inner struggles of May. The president says, if you have the ambition, that it's just a matter of approach. Step down from your director position. I won't fire you. Try doing things your own way from now on. I understand. May's voice was tearful. Being directly confronted with her mistakes must have been incredibly frustrating for her, but seeing May accept the president's words, I felt she might grow significantly from this point on. After that speech, I gained the employees' trust and was appointed as a department director at the headquarters. In the end, I took over the position of May, though I'm not sure if she still remembers she bet her position. I was once a Europe branch manager, but here at the headquarters, there are so many competitors. Being appointed as the director is truly a privilege for me. Climbing to the top of the corporate ladder requires further career development at the headquarters. Meanwhile, Lily assumed the position of assistant to the director. In other words, she took on a role that would help me with my work. The president appreciated the accuracy of the French documents and the serious approach to work that I exhibited. Afterward, although May lost her position, the president's reprimand seemed to have sparked a change in her. She started seriously learning French and management. The previous arrogance was nowhere to be seen. Now, she might even be called one of the most diligent employees in the headquarters. May came to me with her documents. Excuse me, Thomas, could you check if there's anything wrong with this document? Let's see. Perhaps due to her serious study, the French text document was much more readable than before. She must be very smart. Probably she didn't seriously tackle learning a second language before. I can assure her French skills will soon reach a practical level. Every time I check documents or explain things to May, Lily glares at us. I've never seen such an expression on her, so I'm taken aback. What's up, Lily? It's nothing. Lily, why are you so formal? Lily? Well, if you're going to be like that, maybe I should take on your role. No, you can't. I won't give it up now. Lily expresses herself and speaks her mind clearly, even to May. Perhaps she gains confidence from being promoted. This is a significant advancement for the once timid Lily. Soon, she'll likely be able to speak French confidently in negotiations too. Seeing May start to take her studies seriously, it seems the rest of the employees are also more motivated to learn French. The working environment in the department is much better now, and work is going more smoothly. A healthy workplace has something to do with good performance. This department, once dominated by autocracy, is now working well together with employees growing rapidly. There were times I wasn't sure of my future in this company, especially when I felt isolated due to my educational background, but this atmosphere of ambition isn't bad. I'm glad I work with this company.
You think you know someone, and then one day you overhear a truth so sharp, it cuts the foundation of what you thought was real. That's what happened to me on a sunny Saturday afternoon in June, at what should have been a joyful family gathering to celebrate my brother Derek's engagement to his girlfriend Elise. I arrived at my parents' house around noon, a bottle of champagne in hand. Derek greeted me at the door with a huge smile. "Marla, you made it." We hugged, and I followed him inside, where a few relatives were already mingling in the living room. I scanned the room for Elise and spotted her in the kitchen with my mom. "I'll be right back, just going to put this in the fridge," I told Derek, heading to the kitchen. As I approached, I overheard Elise's voice, low and mocking. "And did you see that tacky ring he got me? I mean, you'd think with all his supposed success he could afford something halfway decent. But hey, once we're married, it's just a matter of time before I have access to the real money." I froze in the doorway, my stomach dropping. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Elise, the woman my brother was about to marry, was only after his money? I ducked back out of view before they noticed me, my mind reeling. Marla, there you are. Derek appeared beside me, startling me. Ready to get this party started? I forced a smile onto my face. You bet. Let's celebrate. The next few hours crawled by in a haze. I watched Elise mingle and laugh, playing the part of the blushing bride-to-be, while an icy fist clenched tighter and tighter in my gut. I couldn't stand seeing her with her arm looped through Derek's, flashing her ring and gushing about wedding plans, knowing it was all fake. As the party wound down and guests started to leave, I pulled Derek aside. Hey, can we talk for a sec, privately? Sure, what's up? He followed me out to the back patio. I took a deep breath. Derek, I overheard something today. Something Elise said. I think she might be using you for your money. Derek's brow furrowed. What? That's ridiculous. Elise loves me. She would never do that. I know it sounds crazy, but I heard her myself. She was making fun of your engagement ring and talking about getting access to your money once you're married. No way. You must have misunderstood. Derek shook his head, looking at me like I'd lost my mind. Elise is the most genuine, caring person I know. I can't believe you'd even suggest that. I'm just trying to look out for you, I pleaded. I know what I heard. I think you're just jealous, he snapped. You've always had to be the center of attention, and now that I'm happy, you can't stand it. I'm not going to let you ruin this for me. With that, he turned and stormed back inside, leaving me alone on the patio, stunned and hurt. I couldn't believe he didn't trust me. But I knew deep in my bones that I was right about Elise, and I wasn't going to rest until I could prove it, no matter what it took. I had to save my brother from that gold-digging viper masquerading as the perfect fiancé. This was only the beginning. I steeled myself for the battle ahead as I headed back inside to say my goodbyes, already forming a plan. After the disastrous confrontation with Derek at the engagement party, I spent a sleepless night tossing and turning, Elise's mocking words echoing in my head. I couldn't shake the feeling that my brother was walking blindly into a trap, and it was up to me to save him. The next morning, I called up my old friend Jenna, who worked as a private investigator. Jenna, I need your help. It's about Derek's fiancée, Elise. I think she's bad news. Okay, slow down, Jenna said. What makes you think that? I recounted what I'd overheard at the party. I tried to warn Derek, but he wouldn't listen. He thinks I'm just jealous. But I know what I heard, Jenna. She's using him. All right, I'll see what I can dig up. Give me a few days. True to her word, Jenna called me back 3 days later. Marla, I think you're onto something. I did some digging into Elise's background, and let's just say her past is shadier than a palm tree in July. What did you find? I asked, my heart pounding. Seems like our girl Elise has a history of latching on to wealthy men, bleeding them dry, then moving on to the next target. She's got a trail of broken hearts and empty bank accounts in her wake. I knew it. I felt a surge of vindication, quickly followed by a chill of fear for my brother. Jenna, I need hard evidence to convince Derek. Can you put together a report? Already on it. I'll email it to you by tonight. Armed with Jenna's dossier, I called Derek and asked to meet for coffee the next day. He agreed, albeit reluctantly. We met at a quiet cafe near his office. I slid the folder across the table to him. Derek, I know you think I'm just being a jealous sister, but please hear me out. Jenna did some digging on Elise, and it's not good. Derek's jaw clenched as he flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning the damning evidence. Bank statements, court records, testimonials from jilted exes. It painted a clear picture of Elise as a manipulative, gold-digging con artist. This can't be real, Derek muttered, but I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes. I'm so sorry, Derek. I know this must be hard to see, but you had to know the truth about her. He slammed the folder shut. I need to think, he said abruptly, standing up. Don't tell anyone about this, okay? I need to figure out what to do. I watched him go, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. I knew I'd done the right thing, but I also knew this was far from over. 2 days later, I got a text from Derek. You were right. Confronted Elise. Wedding's off. I owe you an apology. I breathed a sigh of relief, but it was short-lived. That evening, I got a call from an unknown number. You think you're so clever, don't you? Elise's voice was cold with fury. You just couldn't keep your nose out of it. Derek deserved to know the truth about you, I shot back. You're nothing but a lying, manipulative... Shut up, she hissed. You have no idea who you're messing with, you pathetic busybody. I have powerful friends, and I'll make you regret the day you crossed me. This isn't over. The line went dead, and I sat frozen, my heart racing. What had I gotten myself into? But I couldn't back down now. I had to see this through, for Derek's sake. Elise wanted a fight? Bring it on. Elise's threat hung over me like a dark cloud in the days that followed. I jumped at every unfamiliar noise, checked over my shoulder constantly, and had trouble sleeping. But I tried to push through the fear and focus on being there for Derek. He was devastated by Elise's betrayal, but he put on a brave face. I just can't believe I was so blind, he said as we shared a somber drink at his place. Looking back, there were so many red flags. I feel like such a fool. She had us all fooled, I reassured him. The important thing is you found out the truth before it was too late. Derek managed a weak smile. Thanks to you. I'm sorry I didn't believe you at first. I should have known you'd always have my back. That's what family's for, I said, squeezing his hand. But even as I comforted Derek, I couldn't shake the feeling that Elise was out there somewhere, plotting her revenge. My fears were confirmed a week later when I got a call from Jenna. Marla, you need to be careful, she said urgently. I've been hearing whispers that Elise is on the warpath. She's been reaching out to some seriously shady characters, calling in favors. I think she's coming for you. A chill ran down my spine. What do I do, Jenna? Watch your back, upgrade your security system, and maybe consider getting out of town for a while, just until things blow over. But I couldn't just run and hide, not when Derek was still picking up the pieces of his shattered life. He had thrown himself into planning an extravagant charity gala, saying he needed something to keep him busy and take his mind off Elise. I don't know, Derek, I said when he told me about it. Do you really think a big flashy event is a good idea right now? Maybe we should keep a low profile. Nonsense, he said with forced cheer. The show must go on. Besides, it's for a good cause. I could really use your help pulling it all together. I hesitated, thinking of Jenna's warning, but the pleading look in Derek's eyes won me over. All right. I'm in. Let's make this an event to remember. We threw ourselves into the preparations, and for a while, I was able to push thoughts of Elise and her threats to the back of my mind, but they came rushing back with a vengeance 2 days before the gala. I was at Derek's place, going over the final guest list, when his phone buzzed with an incoming text. He glanced at it and went pale. It's from Elise. My blood ran cold. What does it say? With shaking hands, he showed me the screen. Looks like you're going to have a full house at your little party. Shame if something were to happen to all those nice rich people. But I'm sure you've got great security, right? Hate for there to be any accidents. I felt sick. Derek, you have to cancel the gala. This is serious. She's threatening people's lives. He sank into a chair, head in his hands. I can't. It's too late. Everything's already paid for. The invitations are out. I'll hire extra security, take every precaution. I knelt in front of him, forcing him to meet my eyes. Derek, listen to me. No event is worth risking innocent lives. You have to shut it down. We'll find another way to support the charity, but this ends now. For a moment he hesitated, fear and indecision warring on his face. Then his expression hardened with resolve. You're right. I'll make the calls. The gala's off. He stood and walked out of the room, phone already at his ear. I slumped back against the couch, letting out a shaky breath. We'd averted one disaster. But I knew, deep in my bones, that this was only the beginning of Elise's revenge, and I had no idea just how far she would go. The fallout from canceling the gala was immediate and intense. Derek was bombarded with angry calls and emails from guests demanding explanations, vendors demanding compensation, and the charity expressing disappointment at the lost funding. He handled it all with grim determination, apologizing profusely and absorbing the financial hits, but I could see the toll it was taking on him. I'm sorry, Derek, I said for the 100th time as we sat in his living room, surrounded by the detritus of the canceled event. Unused invitations, seating charts, catering menus. I know how much this meant to you. He shook his head warily. It's not your fault, Marla. You were right to insist on canceling. I just wish... He trailed off, his eyes distant. I understood. He wished he'd never met Elise, never fallen for her lies, wished he could go back to his life before she'd poisoned it. In the days that followed, I watched helplessly as my once vibrant, outgoing brother retreated into himself. He went through the motions at work, but the spark was gone from his eyes. He stopped returning friends' calls, stopped going out. It was like Elise had stolen a piece of his soul, and he didn't know how to get it back. I knew I had to do something, so I made a decision, one that I knew Derek wouldn't like. I was going to confront Elise directly. Using the information Jenna had gathered, I tracked Elise down to a high-end spa on the outskirts of town. I staked out the parking lot, and when I saw her emerging, I stepped out of my car and blocked her path. "We need to talk," I said, my voice hard. Elise looked me up and down with a sneer. Well, if it isn't the meddling sister, what do you want?" "I want you to leave my brother alone. Stop threatening him. Stop trying to ruin his life. Just walk away." She laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "Oh, sweetie, you have no idea who you're dealing with, do you? You think you can just order me around like one of your little office lackeys?" She stepped closer, her eyes glinting with malice. "I will destroy you. I will take everything and everyone you love, starting with your precious brother, and I will burn it all to the ground, and there's not a damn thing you can do to stop me." My hands clenched into fists at my sides. "You're wrong. Derek knows what you are now. He's done with you." "Is that so? Then why has he been calling me, begging me to take him back?" My heart stopped. "You're lying." Elise held up her phone, showing me her call log. Derek's name, over and over. Poor thing is so broken up about losing me. It's only a matter of time before he comes crawling back. And when he does, I'll bleed him for every penny, and I'll make sure he knows it's all your fault. Red rage clouded my vision. Before I knew what I was doing, I lashed out, slapping the phone from her hand. It clattered to the pavement, the screen shattering. Elise's eyes burned with fury. "You'll pay for that, you bitch," she hissed, lunging for me. I braced myself, but before she could make contact, a voice rang out. "That's enough." We both turned to see Jenna striding toward us, a fierce expression on her face. "Elise Stanton, I'm placing you under citizen's arrest for extortion, threats, and multiple counts of fraud." Elise gaped at her. "You can't do that." "Oh, I can, and I am. I've got enough evidence to put you away for a long time. Boys?" She nodded to two burly men who had appeared behind her. "Cuff her." As they wrestled a screaming, cursing Elise into a waiting car, Jenna turned to me. "You okay?" I let out a shaky breath. "I will be. Thank you, Jenna, for everything." She hugged me. "That's what friends are for. It's over, Marla. She can't hurt you or Derek anymore." I wanted to believe her, but as I watched the car carry Elise away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from the end. If anything, the real battle was just beginning. Elise's arrest should have been the end of it, but deep down I knew better. Someone as manipulative and well-connected as her wouldn't go down without a fight. And I was right. Less than 24 hours after Jenna had taken her into custody, I got a call. "She's out," Jenna said without preamble. Somehow made bail. My blood turned to ice in my veins. "How is that possible? I thought you said the evidence against her was airtight." "It is," Jenna said grimly, "but seems she's got friends in high places. Some hotshot lawyer swooped in, greased some palms. I'm sorry, Marla. I thought we had her." I took a deep, steadying breath. "It's not your fault, Jenna. You did everything you could. This just means we have to be extra careful. She'll be coming for us now. For me." I hung up and immediately called Derek, warning him about Elise's release and pleading with him to be cautious and alert. He was shaken but resolute. "We won't let her terrorize us anymore," he vowed. "It's time we put an end to this, once and for all." Easier said than done. Over the next few days, Elise's campaign of harassment and intimidation kicked into high gear. I received threatening messages. My car was vandalized, and I could swear I was being followed everywhere I went. Derek experienced similar incidents. Slashed tires, ominous packages left on his doorstep. It was psychological warfare, designed to make us feel vulnerable and afraid in our own lives. But we weren't about to back down. With Jenna's help, we started gathering even more evidence against Elise. Records of her past cons, testimonies from her previous marks, anything that would help ensure a conviction and a long sentence. It was risky, poking the hornet's nest, but we were determined to build an unassailable case. All the while, I was looking over my shoulder, jumping at shadows. The worst part was not knowing when or how Elise would strike. The anticipation was its own kind of torture. It all came to a head a week later. Derek called me, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "Marla, she's here. Elise, she's in my apartment." My heart seized. "What? How? Derek, get out of there now. I'm calling the police." "No, no police. She says if we involve the authorities, she'll hurt Mom and Dad. Marla, I don't know what to do." "Stay calm," I said, though I was anything but calm myself. "I'm on my way. Just keep her talking, okay? Don't let her do anything rash." I broke every speed limit racing to Derek's place, all the while trying to come up with a plan. By the time I burst through his door, my heart was hammering out of my chest. I found them in the living room, Derek white-faced and shaking, Elise cool and composed with a smug smile playing about her lips. "Ah, Marla, so good of you to join us," she purred. "Elise," I said evenly, fighting to keep my voice steady. "You need to leave, now." She laughed. "Oh, I don't think so. You see, Derek and I were just coming to an understanding, weren't we, darling?" Derek wouldn't meet my eyes, his head down. Elise continued. "Here's how it's going to go. You two are going to drop this little crusade against me. All the evidence, all the witnesses. It all disappears. And in return, I'll let your family live in peace. Refuse. And, well, I can't be held responsible for what might happen to poor, sweet Mom and Dad." Rage and terror warred within me. This was the showdown I'd been dreading and anticipating. The moment of truth. I looked at Elise, at her cruel, triumphant face, and I knew I had a choice to make. Surrender to her threats and live under her thumb forever, or fight back with everything I had and risk it all. In that moment, staring into the face of evil, I made my decision. I squared my shoulders, looked her dead in the eye, and said the words that would change everything. "Bring it on, bitch." Elise's eyes narrowed at my defiance. "You're making a big mistake, Marla. You have no idea what I'm capable of." "No, Elise, you're the one who's mistaken," I shot back, my voice steady, despite the fear churning in my gut. "You've underestimated me, my brother, and the power of the truth, and that's going to be your downfall." I turned to Derek, who was watching our exchange with wide, anxious eyes. "Derek, it's time. We're ending this now." With shaking hands, Derek pulled out his phone and sent a single text. Moments later, the apartment door burst open, and in poured Jenna and a team of police officers. Elise whirled around, her face contorting with rage. "What is this?" she snarled. Jenna stepped forward, a fierce smile on her face. "This, Elise, is a sting operation. We've been recording everything. Every threat, every admission of guilt. It's all on tape." Realization dawned on Elise's face, quickly replaced by pure, unadulterated fury. She lunged at me, screaming incoherently, but the officers were too quick. They had her restrained and cuffed in seconds. As they led her away, Elise twisted in their grip to face me, her eyes burning with hatred. "This isn't over, Marla," she shrieked. "I'll destroy you for this. I'll destroy all of you." Then she was gone, her manic threats echoing in the sudden stillness of the apartment. I turned to Derek, my knees weak with relief. "We did it," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "We got her." He pulled me into a fierce hug, his whole body trembling. "I'm so sorry, Marla, for everything. I should have listened to you from the start." "It's okay," I murmured, holding him tight. "It's over now. We're safe." But even as I said the words, I knew they weren't entirely true. Elise might be in custody, but her venom ran deep. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a whole new battle. That battle began in earnest at Elise's trial. Despite the mountain of evidence against her, she fought tooth and nail, her high-priced lawyers using every dirty trick in the book to try and discredit our testimony. On the stand, under the heat of the defense's cross-examination, I felt like I was the one on trial. They painted me as a jealous, manipulative sister, twisting my every word against me. But I held firm, clinging to the truth like a lifeline. Derek faced even worse in his testimony, forced to relive the pain and humiliation of Elise's betrayal. But he too stood strong, his voice never wavering as he laid bare the depths of her deceit. And then, the moment we'd been waiting for. Jenna took the stand, and one by one, she presented the recordings, the documents, the irrefutable proof of Elise's crimes. With each piece of evidence, I watched Elise's composure crack, her icy facade melting under the heat of her own incriminating words. In the end, The jury deliberated for less than an hour. When the verdict came back, the courtroom erupted, guilty on all counts. Elise was sentenced to 15 years in prison, with the possibility of more time pending further investigation into her past crimes. As they led her away in cuffs, Elise shot me one last venomous glare. "Rot in hell," she hissed. "Both of you." I just smiled, feeling the weight of months of fear and stress lift from my shoulders. "Enjoy prison, Elise. I hear orange is the new black." Derek and I walked out of the courthouse into the blinding sunlight, hand in hand. It was over. We were free. But as we stepped into the world ready to rebuild our lives, I couldn't shake one nagging thought. Elise still had powerful allies, a network of corruption and deceit. Was this truly the end? Or was it just a temporary reprieve in a war that was far from over? Only time would tell. But one thing I knew for certain, whatever battles lay ahead, Derek and I would face them together. And together, we were unbreakable. The morning after Elise's conviction, I woke to the shrill ring of my phone. Bleary-eyed, I glanced at the caller ID. Derek. A cold knot formed in my stomach as I answered. "Derek, what's wrong?" "Turn on the news," he said, his voice strained. "Now." I fumbled for the remote, my heart pounding. The TV flickered to life, and there she was. Elise, being led out of the courthouse in cuffs, a reporter shoving a microphone in her face. "Miss Stanton, do you have any comment on the allegations that you bribed a juror in your trial?" My blood turned to ice. Bribery? But before I could even process the implications, Elise spoke. "I have been wrongfully convicted," she declared, her voice ringing with righteous indignation. "And I know exactly who's behind this travesty of justice, Marla Newman." The camera cut to a picture of me, and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. What was she doing? "Marla was obsessed with me, jealous of my relationship with her brother," Elise continued, her eyes wild. "She orchestrated this entire thing to destroy me. She threatened me, blackmailed me, and now she's tampering with the jury to make sure I go down." "That's insane," I shouted at the screen. "She's lying." But the reporter was already running with it. Shocking allegations from the convicted con artist Elise Stanton. Could this be a case of a vengeful sister going too far? Stay tuned as we investigate these explosive claims. I clicked off the TV, numb with shock and fury. She was doing it again, twisting the truth to paint herself as the victim. And now she was dragging me down with her. My phone exploded with notifications, texts, emails, social media tags, everyone wanting to know if it was true, if I really was the psycho-obsessed sister Elise made me out to be. I called Jenna in a panic. "You have to do something," I pleaded. "She's destroying me." Jenna was already on it. "We'll counter her lies with the truth," she assured me. "I've got your back, Marla. We all do." But the damage was done. Over the next few days, despite Jenna's efforts, the media latched onto Elise's narrative. Every mistake I'd ever made, every flaw and imperfection was dredged up and put on display. My life became a waking nightmare of harassment and accusations. Even Derek began to doubt. "Are you sure you didn't, I don't know, maybe go a little too far?" he asked hesitantly one night. I stared at him, hurt and disbelief rendering me speechless. After everything, how could he even question me? Seeing my face, he backpedaled. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean, I know you'd never do what she's accusing you of. I'm scared, Marla." I softened, pulling him into a hug. "I know. I am too. But we can't let her win. We have to fight." And fight we did. Jenna worked tirelessly to discredit Elise's claims, to prove that the bribery allegations were just another desperate ploy from a cornered liar. Slowly, painfully, the tide began to turn. Then, a bombshell. One of Elise's old associates came forward, offering proof that Elise herself had orchestrated the bribery scandal in a last-ditch effort to force a mistrial and escape justice. It was the final nail in her coffin. The story exploded, and suddenly everyone who had doubted me was falling over themselves to apologize, to distance themselves from the disgraced con artist. I watched it all unfold with a grim satisfaction, but no real joy. Because even though Elise was finally truly defeated, the scars she left remained. The doubt, the mistrust, the knowledge that someone I had once welcomed into my life could be so manipulative, so cruel. It would take time to heal, to rebuild what she had tried to destroy. But as I sat with Derek, watching as Elise was led away in cuffs once more, I knew one thing for certain. We had won. And no matter what lies Elise tried to spin, no matter what darkness she tried to spread, the truth would always prevail. Derek and I, our bond, was stronger than her hate, and that was a victory she could never take away. In the weeks following Elise's final downfall, life slowly began to return to normal, or as normal as it could be, after everything we'd been through. Derek threw himself into his work, determined to rebuild his reputation and his life. I stood by his side, supporting him every step of the way. But Elise's shadow still lingered. Despite being behind bars, her venom continued to spread. Nasty rumors circulated online. Old associates of hers came out of the woodwork with sordid tales of her past. It seemed her network of deceit ran even deeper than we'd imagined. One day, I received a chilling email from an anonymous sender. "You think you've won, but you have no idea what's coming," it read. "Elise has friends in high places. Watch your back." I showed the message to Jenna, my hands shaking. "It never ends," I said, my voice breaking. "She's still tormenting us, even from prison." Jenna's face hardened with resolve. "We'll find out who sent this," she vowed, "and we'll make sure they face consequences, just like Elise." True to her word, Jenna launched an investigation, and what she uncovered was staggering. Elise's web of corruption extended far beyond what we'd ever imagined. Crooked lawyers, dirty cops, even a judge or two in her pocket. It was a hydra of deceit, and every time we cut off one head, two more seemed to sprout in its place. But we kept fighting. Derek and I gave interviews, telling our story, exposing Elise's lies. Slowly, the tide of public opinion began to turn. Elise's empire crumbled, her allies scattering like rats from a sinking ship. Finally, the day of reckoning came. Elise and her co-conspirators were brought up on a slew of new charges: racketeering, obstruction of justice, witness tampering. It was the trial of the century, and Derek and I were the star witnesses. On the stand, facing Elise once more, I felt a strange calm settle over me. She glared at me, her eyes full of impotent rage, but I stared back unflinching. She had no power over me anymore. "Tell the court what happened, Marla," the prosecutor prompted. And I did. I told my story, our story, holding nothing back. I laid bare every manipulation, every cruel machination, and as I spoke, I watched Elise's face contort with fury, then fear, then finally defeat. The verdict was swift and unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Elise was sentenced to an additional 20 years, her allies receiving similarly harsh sentences. It was over. Really, truly over. As they led Elise out of the courtroom for the last time, she twisted in the officer's grip to face me. "I'll get out someday," she snarled. "And when I do, I'll come for you. I'll make you pay for this." I just smiled sadly. "No, Elise, you won't. You're going to spend the rest of your life in a cage, with nothing but your anger and your regrets for company, and that's a fate far worse than anything you could ever do to me." With that, I turned my back on her, walking out of the courthouse and into the sunlight. Derek was waiting for me, a tentative smile on his face. "Is it really over?" he asked. I took his hand, squeezing it tight. "It's over. She can't hurt us anymore. We're free." And as we walked away, hand in hand, I felt a lightness in my heart that I hadn't known in years. The nightmare was finally over. And while the scars would always remain, I knew that Derek and I would heal, together. We had each other. We had the truth. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Elise had tried to destroy us, but she had only made us stronger. Our bond was unbreakable, forged in the fire of her hatred. And as we faced the future, unsure but unafraid, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them head-on, side by side. Because that's what family does. And Derek and I, we were family, now and always.
Hi there, I'm Ava. I work as an insurance agent, a job that keeps me glued to my desk or on the phone most days. I live in a cozy house that my grandma left me when she passed. It's a bit old-fashioned, but filled with memories and comfort. My life's pretty routine: work, home, a bit of gardening, and then some more work. Dating? Who's got the time? After another long day filled with claims and paperwork, the loneliness of the big, quiet house really hit me. That's when I thought, why not try online dating? I took a couple of decent pics in front of the house and some from my trips to Europe last summer, slapped them up on a dating site, and hoped for the best. Barely had I refreshed the page when a message popped up. It was from Ethan. His profile showed a guy with a confident smile, standing in a garage full of cars. The caption said he ran his own car repair shop. Just my type, a guy who knew how to handle tools. We hit it off right from our first chat. Ethan was straightforward, no airs about him. He said, "Hey Ava, I see you've been to Italy. Got any good travel stories?" I laughed, typing back quickly, "If getting lost in Venice and ending up on a private gondola counts, then yeah, loads." "Sounds like my kind of adventure," he replied. And just like that, we kept messaging back and forth. He had a sense of humor that made even a bad day good. Our first date was at a local diner. Nothing fancy, just good burgers and fries. When I saw him waiting outside, leaning against his beat-up truck, he waved and grinned. It was easy to smile back. The conversation flowed as smoothly as the milkshakes we ordered. Ethan was all about his shop and the cars, and I shared tales from the insurance battlefield. But when he talked about his family, his tone changed a bit. "I owe a lot to my mom, you know? She raised me by herself." I didn't think much of it then. I was too caught up in his stories, his laughter, and the way his eyes lit up when he talked about his latest car restoration. By the end of the evening, I was glad I took the plunge into online dating. Ethan was a breath of fresh air, someone who seemed genuinely into the things I cared about. We made plans to meet again, and I went home feeling something I hadn't in a while: excitement. The more we dated, the closer we got, and it didn't take long before we were talking about a future together. He was easy to love, with his quick smiles and the way he'd fix anything that broke around my house, just like he promised. But as our wedding day neared, Ethan dropped a bit of a bombshell on me. "You know, Ava, my mom and I are really close," he said one evening as we were scrolling through potential wedding venues on his laptop. "I mean, she's pretty much my best friend." I smiled, finding his devotion sweet. "That's really nice, Ethan. It's good to see a man who cares about his family." "Yeah, she's been through a lot, just us two for so many years. She means the world to me." He glanced at me, maybe checking to see if I was okay with this level of attachment. "Of course, I get it," I reassured him, squeezing his hand. I met Maggie a week later at her quaint little house that seemed frozen in another era. Ethan had hyped up how much she was going to love me. But the reality? It was like hitting a wall of ice. She was polite, sure, but there was a stiffness to her smile, a reserve in her hello. During dinner, I tried to make conversation, really I did. "This casserole is delicious, Maggie. Ethan told me you're the best cook." But Maggie turned to Ethan, ignoring my attempt. "Ethan, did you look into that garage space for rent down by Baker Street?" I sat there, stirring my food around the plate, feeling more like a spectator than a part of the family. It didn't get any better as the night went on. Each attempt I made to draw her out was met with brief answers and swift diversions back to Ethan. On our drive home, I couldn't help but express my frustration. "Does your mom not like me?" I felt like she didn't really want to talk to me at all tonight. Ethan was quick to defend her. Nah, she's just not very good with new people. Give her time, she'll warm up to you. I wanted to believe him. I really did. So, I brushed it off and focused on the wedding plans. But every visit after that was a repeat performance. Maggie's warmth surfaced only when she wanted to know about my financial stability or the house I lived in. So, Ava, Maggie began one afternoon, a sudden interest lighting up her face as we discussed the wedding guest list. This house you live in, it's the one you inherited from your grandmother, right? Yes, it's been in the family for years, I said, cautious, but trying to keep the conversation friendly. And I suppose you have everything sorted out with your finances? Savings and such? Her eyes were sharp, assessing. I stiffened, feeling like I was under a microscope. Yes, I've been very careful with my finances. That's good, that's good. It's important to have a solid foundation, especially in a marriage, she added, her gaze flickering between Ethan and me. The conversation drifted back to mundane wedding details, but the seed of unease was planted. Maggie's questions lingered in my mind, painting my thoughts with doubt. What was her angle? Was she just being overly protective, or was there something more calculating beneath her questions? Ethan seemed oblivious to these subtleties, always smoothing over any awkwardness with a joke or a change of topic. Mom's just being mom, he'd laugh whenever I brought up how she made me feel. As the wedding day drew near, the excitement I felt was tinged with nerves, not just about the big day, but about everything that was becoming increasingly complicated with Ethan's family. A question that had been nagging at me finally slipped out one evening while Ethan and I were checking off items on our to-do list. Ethan, how come your dad isn't on the guest list? I asked, trying to sound casual, but I was genuinely curious. He looked up from his list, a frown briefly crossing his face. My dad? Ava, he left us when I was just a kid. He made his choice, Ava. I don't see any reason to drag up the past now. I nodded, respecting his feelings, but something didn't sit right with me. It felt like there was more to the story, and on a whim, I decided to dig a little deeper. Using a bit of my insurance sleuthing skills, I managed to find a contact number for Ethan's dad, Michael. The next day, while Ethan was at work, I made the call, my heart racing as it rang. Hello? The voice on the other end was cautious, reserved. Hi, Michael? My name's Ava. I'm Ethan's fiancée. We're getting married soon, and I thought you should know. I stumbled through my introduction. There was a pause, a heavy silence that made me think he might just hang up. But then he spoke, his voice laced with a mixture of surprise and something else I couldn't quite place. Ava, that's news. But listen, I think it's best if I stay out of it. Ethan's made it clear he doesn't want me in his life. His words were calm but firm, yet he added something that sent chills down my spine. Just be careful, Ava. With him and his mother. There's more going on there than you might realize. I stood there for a moment, phone in hand, bewildered. Was he just a bitter ex-husband and father, or was there really something I needed to be wary of? Shaking off the unease, I decided he must just be a little out of his mind, as Ethan had implied. The wedding day arrived, and it was like a dream. Everything was perfect, from the weather to the flowers. But even the most beautiful day couldn't keep the shadows at bay. Maggie, Ethan's mother, was a force to be reckoned with. From the moment the ceremony started, she was ever present, hovering close to Ethan, adjusting his tie, whispering in his ear. At the reception, I hoped we could finally have our moment, but Maggie had other plans. When it came time to cut the cake, she brushed past me, a tight smile on her face. I'll handle this, dear, she said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. I am the main hostess, after all. I watched, stunned, as she took the knife and started slicing the cake, her other hand possessively on Ethan's shoulder. The guests clapped, but the applause felt hollow. I felt more like a guest at my own wedding than the bride. Throughout the evening, Maggie made sure to position herself prominently in every photo, always inserting herself between Ethan and me. Her laughter was forced, her joy seemingly more about her victory in maintaining control than about our happiness. Ethan and I settled into my grandmother's house. Everything was going smoothly, or so I thought, until the dynamic shifted dramatically with Maggie's regular intrusions. Every weekend, we'd go over to Maggie's for dinner, and it was like stepping into a minefield. She was all sweet smiles to Ethan while serving up a side of snide remarks to me. "Ava, try the roast. You might learn a thing or two about cooking," she'd say, her voice dripping with a sarcasm that made my skin crawl. Ethan would just chuckle, clueless, or maybe just unwilling to catch the barbs. "Mom's right. Nobody cooks like her," he'd laugh, completely missing the tension. One Sunday, as she filled Ethan's plate with a heap of mashed potatoes, she shot me a look that could chill coffee. "Darling, make sure Ava takes some notes. She might finally get it right." Ethan roared with laughter, not seeing the hurt in my eyes. "Good one, Mom." 3 months into our marriage, I came home from work to find Maggie on my doorstep, her suitcases piled beside her like some fortress wall. "Ava, dear, I'm feeling unwell, and it's just not safe for me to be alone anymore. I hope you don't mind if I stay here for a while." Before I could even process the request, Ethan came rushing over, wrapping his arms around her. "Of course, Mom. You're always welcome here." Just like that, she moved in. It was as if I had no say in my own home. Maggie took over the house with an iron fist and a velvet glove for Ethan. She did nothing around the house, claiming her health was too frail, leaving me to pick up the slack. My home quickly felt more like a prison, and Maggie was the warden. In the evenings, the living room turned into their private club. They'd watch TV together while I was left to my own devices, feeling more like a ghost than a wife in my own home. Weekends were even worse. They'd go shopping without me, as if I didn't exist. One evening, I gathered my courage at dinner. As we sat at the table, I tried to keep my voice steady. "Maggie, do you have any idea when you might be feeling better? To maybe go back home?" The room fell deathly silent. Ethan's fork clattered to his plate as he stared at me, his face contorting in anger. "Are you trying to kick my mom out?" he exploded, his voice filling the room with a cold fury I hadn't seen before. "No, Ethan, that's not what I meant. I was just asking because..." But he didn't let me finish. He stormed off to his room, slamming the door behind him. Maggie sat there, a smug smile playing on her lips, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Looks like you put your foot in it, dear," she taunted, her voice low and menacing. I sat there, stunned and alone, the clinking of cutlery echoing my shaking hands. What was happening? How had my life turned into this nightmare? One morning, I was pulling out my favorite blouse for work when I noticed it looked off. The color was faded, the fabric rough, and the seams slightly torn. Puzzled, I dug through my wardrobe and found more of my clothes in similar states of ruin. "That's odd," I muttered to myself, examining a particularly discolored sweater. Maggie, who was always buzzing around, chimed in with a too-sweet tone. "Oh, dear, that's my fault. I mixed up the laundry last week, must have used the wrong detergent. You know how it is, these things happen." Her words dripped with faux concern, but the glint in her eyes said otherwise. It was clear, this was no accident. This was on purpose. And sure enough, none of Ethan's clothes showed any signs of damage. When I confronted Ethan about it later that day, his reaction was dismissive at best. "You know how Mom is. She's getting older, mistakes happen. Looks like you're not taking good enough care of your stuff, Ava. His words stung, and I felt a cold realization settling in. I was alone in this. As days turned into weeks, more of my things started to mysteriously deteriorate. My favorite lipstick found smashed, my skincare creams diluted, Maggie's tactics grew bolder. The strain was unbearable, and one evening, I couldn't hold it in any longer. Ethan, this can't be a coincidence anymore. Your mother, she's doing this on purpose. She's ruining my things, I exclaimed, my voice tinged with desperation. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. Then, after a moment, he sighed. Look, Ava, maybe you need a break from all this stress. Hey, I know, I've got just the thing. I got us a gift, a weekend trip, a mountain hike. It'll be good for you. My heart lifted at the idea. Really? Just the two of us? That sounds wonderful, Ethan. His face shifted uncomfortably. Well, actually, I was thinking, it could be a great chance for you and Mom to patch things up. She's excited about the trip too. My heart sank. You want me to go hiking with your mother? After everything? It's either that or you don't really care about making our family work, he shot back, a harsh edge to his voice that I hadn't heard before. I was trapped. So, I agreed, defeated and utterly drained. When I told Maggie, her response was unnervingly cheerful. That sounds lovely, dear. We'll have such a good time. She beamed, her satisfaction evident. That night, as I packed my backpack, the weight of what lay ahead felt heavier than any mountain gear. The thought of spending days in the wilderness with Maggie was daunting. The morning of the hike was crisp and cool, the air fresh with the scent of pine and earth. As we set out with our group, Maggie seemed unusually pleasant, chatting with other hikers and even sharing jokes. For the first few hours, everything went smoothly. The scenery was breathtaking, with vast landscapes stretching out under a brilliant blue sky. Maggie kept pace and didn't complain, which eased some of my tension. Maybe, just maybe, this could be a new beginning for us. However, as the terrain became more challenging, Maggie began to slow down, her breaths turning heavy. Ava, darling, I need to rest for a bit. Go on, I'll catch up. She gasped, stopping to lean against a boulder. I'll stay with you for a bit. We can go slow, I said, settling next to her. After a short rest, we attempted to catch up with the group, but Maggie's pace was slow, and it wasn't long before we were alone. The sounds of our companions faded into the distance. How far do you think they've gone? Maggie asked, her voice tinged with worry. Please check from that rock over there. You might get a better view. As I climbed the rock, focused on locating our group, I felt a sudden, sharp shove from behind. My feet lost their grip, and I tumbled forward, the ground rushing up to meet me as I blacked out. When I regained consciousness, the pain hit me like a wave. My arms were scraped and bruised, throbbing with each heartbeat. Worse, my leg was twisted at an odd angle, pain flaring with even the slightest movement. Panic set in as I realized Maggie was gone, along with my backpack that had my phone, water, and food. Maggie! I screamed, hoping she was nearby, that this was some terrible mistake. But there was no answer, just the rustle of leaves and the distant call of a bird. As dusk approached, I knew I couldn't stay on the ground, the risk of wild animals was too real. Wincing with every movement, I managed to pull myself onto a large rock, where I spent a chilling, miserable night, shivering and waiting for dawn. At first light, I forced myself off the rock, pain shooting through my leg. I had to find our trail, had to get back to where the bus would meet us. Every step was agony, but the thought of being left behind drove me forward. Hours passed, each one a test of my will. Finally, I heard voices. A group of hikers appeared like a mirage through my tears of pain and relief. "Help! Please, I need help!" I cried out, my voice hoarse. They didn't waste time with more questions. One of them radioed for help while the others made me as comfortable as they could. Eventually, rescue services arrived, and I was transported to a hospital, the pain a constant companion. I woke up to the sterile whiteness of the hospital room, the beeping of machines punctuating the silence. My injuries ached, but the pain was dulled by relief. I was alive, rescued, and far from the perilous cold of the mountain. Tears of happiness rolled down my cheeks, not just from the pain, but from the sheer joy of survival. With trembling fingers, I reached for the phone on the bedside table. My first call was to Ethan. My heart pounded as I dialed the number from memory, rehearsing the words in my mind. He needed to know the truth about his mother, about what happened. "Ethan, it's me," I started, my voice quivering. "I need to tell you something important. Your mom, she pushed me off a rock and left me there." His response came fast and fierce, a torrent of anger that I hadn't anticipated. "You're lying," he yelled into the phone. "My mom told me everything. She said you abandoned her up there and faked your injuries. How could you accuse her of such a thing?" "I'm not lying, Ethan. It's the truth. She left me there alone." My plea cracked with emotion. "You're just trying to tear us apart. I can't believe you'd stoop this low. You know what? I don't want to see you. I want a divorce." His words were like daggers, and before I could respond, he hung up. Stunned, I lay back against the pillows. His words echoed in my mind, a harsh reminder of the tangled web I was caught in. As I processed the shock, a thought surfaced, the warnings from Ethan's father, Michael. Maybe he would understand, maybe he could help. I found his number and dialed with shaky hands. "Michael, it's Ava. I need to talk to you, it's urgent," I said as soon as he answered. He was at the hospital within the hour, his expression grave. We sat in the small, cramped space of the hospital room, and I told him everything. Michael listened intently, his brow furrowed in concern. When I finished, he sighed deeply. "I've always known she was too attached to Ethan, but this is something else. She once tried to harm me too, did something to my car brakes. Wanted Ethan to have everything. Why didn't you go to the police?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I had no proof, just suspicions. Nothing concrete enough to take to the authorities," he explained, his voice heavy with regret. "We need to do something, Michael. We can't let her get away with this," I insisted, the resolve hardening in my voice. That night, lying in the dim glow of the hospital room, I called my mother. It took some persuasion, but she agreed to play a part in the plan we were forming. "Mom, just casually mention to Ethan that I'm dying. Say the injuries were worse than they thought," I instructed her, my voice low. The morning after my call with my mother, the hospital room's door swung open. I braced myself as Ethan and Maggie strode in, their faces a mix of faux concern and barely concealed eagerness. I lay there, my breathing shallow, feigning the brink of death as we had planned. "Oh, Ava, you look terrible," Maggie said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy, but her eyes glinting with something akin to triumph. I moaned weakly, keeping my eyes half closed as Ethan hovered by the bedside, his expression conflicted but mostly impatient. Maggie leaned closer, lowering her voice, but not enough. "Everything's going as planned, Ethan. Soon, all this, her house, her money, it'll all be yours." Ethan glanced around nervously before kissing his mother on the cheek. "I'm so tired of all this drama," he muttered. "It'd be easier if she just went quickly." My heart pounded at their words, a mixture of fear and fury coursing through me, but I held still, waiting for the final piece to fall into place. And to think, Maggie chuckled quietly, her cold breath brushing my face. It was so easy to push her off that cliff. She actually thought I was tired. And when I told the others she'd gone back on another bus, they believed it. That was the moment Michael chose to enter, his timing perfect. "Got all that, have you?" he announced loudly, holding up his phone, which had been recording their conversation. The color drained from Ethan and Maggie's faces as they realized what had happened. Ethan's mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out, while Maggie's initial shock quickly morphed into a scowl. She made a move as if to snatch the phone, but Michael stepped back, blocking her path. "The police are on their way," Michael stated firmly. I sat up then, throwing off the guise of weakness. "And here's something else for you," I said, holding out the divorce papers to Ethan. His shock turned to horror as he took the documents, his hands shaking. "You'll pay for everything. All of it," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Ethan turned to his father, desperation in his voice. "You can't let them lock me up, Dad. You'd have no one left." Michael's expression was one of utter disdain. "Actually, I will have someone. Ava's pregnant. And I will make sure my grandchild and Ava have everything they need." The revelation hit everyone like a bolt. Ethan staggered as if struck, his face ashen, while Maggie's eyes widened in disbelief. Before more could be said, the police arrived. They listened briefly to Michael's explanation, checked his recording, and then handcuffed Ethan and Maggie. As they were led away, the reality of their situation finally seemed to dawn on them. In the months that followed, the trial was swift. The evidence was undeniable, and both Ethan and his mother were sentenced to significant terms. The house became peaceful again, and with Michael's support, I prepared for the new life I was about to bring into the world. When my son was born, it was with a sense of relief and renewal. Michael was there, beaming, as he held his grandson for the first time. "He's going to have a good life," he promised, and I believed him.
Round-the-clock care without the burden of staying in this house. My heart pounded in my chest as the true nature of his plan became clear. He intended to strip Meredith of her dignity, her independence, and ultimately her assets. "You can't be serious," I blurted out before I could stop myself. "Meredith has made it abundantly clear that she wants to remain in her home, surrounded by her familiar belongings." Dean shot me a withering glare, his false veneer of concern slipping to reveal the cold, calculating man beneath. "This isn't your decision, Avery," he spat. "Meredith is my mother, and I'll do what's best for her." Meredith's grip tightened around my hand, and I could feel her trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. In that moment, our unspoken pact solidified. We would not let Dean strip away her autonomy without a fight. "I'm not going anywhere," Meredith declared, her voice resonating with a strength I had seldom witnessed. "This is my home, and you have no right to take it away from me." Dean's face contorted with rage, his carefully constructed facade crumbling before our eyes. "You ungrateful old woman," he snarled, taking a menacing step forward. Without hesitation, I placed myself between him and Meredith, my body shielding her from his wrath. "That's enough, Dean," I warned, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "You've made your intentions clear, and we won't stand for it." A tense silence hung in the air, the weight of our shared defiance palpable. Dean's eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched with barely restrained anger, but in that moment I knew we had struck a blow. A crack in his armor that would ultimately lead to his undoing. As he stormed out of the room, I turned to Meredith, our eyes locking in a silent vow. The stakes had been raised, and there was no turning back. We would see this through to the bitter end, no matter the cost. In the wake of Dean's outburst, a newfound sense of urgency propelled our plan forward. We both knew that his threats were not to be taken lightly, and time was of the essence if we were to secure Meredith's well-being and expose his true nature. I channeled my energy into gathering every shred of evidence that could be used against him. With meticulous care, I documented each instance of neglect, every missed appointment, and every callous remark that had fallen from his lips. Meredith, in her moments of clarity, provided invaluable insights into the family's financial records, revealing the breadcrumbs of Dean's deceit. "He thinks he's being so clever," she would say, her eyes alight with determination. "But we'll show him. We'll make sure everyone knows the truth." As our cache of evidence grew, I found myself seeking the counsel of an old friend from nursing school, Julia, a woman whose unwavering moral compass and sharp legal mind had always been a source of inspiration. "Avery, what you're describing is nothing short of elder abuse and financial exploitation," Julia said, her brow furrowed as she pored over the meticulously compiled documents. "With the right legal representation, we can build an airtight case against him." Her words fueled my determination, and together we began laying the groundwork for a legal battle that would shake the foundations of Dean's carefully constructed facade. Throughout this process, I couldn't help but marvel at Meredith's resilience. Despite her failing health, she remained steadfast in her resolve, her moments of lucidity becoming beacons of hope that guided our efforts. "He's always underestimated me," she confided one evening, her frail hand clasping mine with surprising strength. "But this time, he's gone too far." In those moments, I saw the unwavering bond that had formed between us, a bond forged by shared adversity and a thirst for justice. It was a bond that transcended the boundaries of blood and law, and it was this bond that would ultimately be Dean's undoing. With each passing day, our arsenal grew stronger, bolstered by the unwavering support of Julia and the indomitable spirit of Meredith. Dean, in his arrogance, remained oblivious to our machinations, secure in his belief that he held all the cards. Little did he know that the tables were turning, and the very woman he had sought to exploit, the woman he had dismissed as a mere caretaker, would be the one to unravel the web of lies he had so carefully woven. As the pieces fell into place, a sense of anticipation bubbled within me. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but I knew that with Meredith by my side and the weight of evidence on our side, we would emerge victorious. Dean's reign of cruelty and deceit was drawing to a close, and soon the scales of justice would tip in our favor, delivering the comeuppance he so richly deserved. The tension in the air was palpable as the day of reckoning drew near. Meredith's health had taken a turn for the worse, her moments of lucidity becoming increasingly fleeting. It was a brutal reminder of the urgency that fueled our mission. "We can't wait any longer," Julia said, her voice hushed as she pored over the meticulously compiled evidence. "If we don't act soon, Dean might succeed in his plan to commit Meredith to that nursing home." Her words sent a chill down my spine, solidifying my resolve. We had come too far to let Dean's cruelty triumph. With careful planning and precision, we orchestrated our escape, a final act of defiance against Dean's machinations. Under the guise of a medical emergency, I arranged for a discreet transport to whisk Meredith away to a secure location far from Dean's reach. The night before our departure, I sat by Meredith's bedside, her frail hand clasped in mine. Her eyes, though dulled by the relentless progression of her condition, shone with a fierce determination that belied her fragile state. "We're almost there, Meredith," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "Soon you'll be safe, and Dean will face the consequences of his actions." A faint smile tugged at the corners of her lips, her grip tightening ever so slightly around my fingers. "I know, my dear," she rasped, "and when this is all over, we'll finally be free." Her words resonated deep within me, echoing the shared yearning for a future untainted by Dean's cruelty. It was a future that had once seemed like a distant dream, but now it was within our grasp. The following morning, I steeled myself for the final act. As the transport team arrived, I busied myself with the pretense of a medical emergency, meticulously staging the scene to sell our ruse. Dean burst into the room, his face contorted with a mixture of concern and annoyance. "What's going on?" he demanded, his gaze flickering between Meredith's still form and the flurry of activity around her. "Your mother's condition has taken a turn," I said, injecting just the right amount of urgency into my voice. "We need to get her to the hospital immediately." For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a glimmer of genuine concern in Dean's eyes, but it was quickly overshadowed by his ever-present selfishness. Fine, fine, he muttered, waving us off with a dismissive gesture. Just make sure she's taken care of. Little did he know that those words would come back to haunt him. As the transport team whisked Meredith away, I couldn't help but steal one last glance at Dean, his oblivious form already retreating into the depths of the house. A sense of triumph coursed through my veins, tempered by the knowledge that the true battle was yet to come. With Meredith safely ensconced in our secure location, I turned my attention to the final piece of our plan, a meticulously crafted letter detailing Dean's transgressions in explicit detail. Copies were dispatched to key relatives and authorities, setting the stage for the reckoning that was to come. As I sealed the last envelope, a sense of finality washed over me. The die had been cast, and there was no turning back. But for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that justice would prevail, and karma would finally catch up to Dean. The calm before the storm had passed, and now the true battle was about to begin. The days following our escape were a whirlwind of activity, as the wheels of justice began to turn. Relatives and authorities, alerted by our meticulously crafted letters, descended upon the situation with a sense of urgency. It was only a matter of time before Dean realized that his carefully constructed world was crumbling around him. True to form, he showed up at our secure location unannounced, his face twisted into a mask of rage. I had been expecting his arrival, and yet the sight of him still sent a chill down my spine. "Where is she?" he snarled, his eyes wild with fury. "Where have you taken my mother?" I met his gaze with a steely resolve, refusing to cower in the face of his wrath. "Meredith is safe," I said, my voice steady and unwavering. "Safe from you and your selfish schemes." Dean's nostrils flared, and for a moment I thought he might lunge at me. But then a sickening smirk spread across his face, and he let out a humorless chuckle. "You think you've won, don't you?" he sneered. "You and that doddering old fool plotting against me like some twisted fantasy." I fought back the urge to strike him, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. "It's over, Dean," I said through gritted teeth. "We know everything, the financial exploitation, the neglect, the lies. You've lost." His eyes narrowed and he took a menacing step forward. "You'll never prove anything," he spat. "Without my mother's testimony, you have nothing." In that moment, a familiar voice cut through the tension. "I wouldn't be so sure about that, son." Meredith, frail but resolute, emerged from the shadows, her eyes burning with a fierce determination that belied her fragile state. Dean's jaw dropped, his composure crumbling as he took in the sight of his mother, defiant and unwavering in her support of me. "Mother, what are you doing?" he stammered, his arrogance giving way to a flicker of uncertainty. Meredith met his gaze head-on, her voice steady and unwavering. "I'm doing what I should have done years ago, Dean," she said. "I'm putting an end to your cruelty and deceit." Before Dean could respond, the sound of approaching sirens filled the air, signaling the arrival of the authorities. Julia had been true to her word, coordinating a swift and decisive response to our call for justice. Dean's eyes darted around in panic, his carefully cultivated facade crumbling before our eyes. "This is insane," he muttered, his words laced with desperation. "You'll all pay for this." But his threats rang hollow, as the officers burst through the door, their stern expressions leaving no room for negotiation. As they read him his rights and placed him under arrest, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication wash over me. The man who had so callously manipulated and exploited us was finally facing the consequences of his actions. Meredith's hand found mine, her grip surprisingly strong despite her frailty. "It's over," she whispered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We did it." In that moment, the weight of our shared struggle lifted, replaced by a profound sense of relief and triumph. The road ahead was still fraught with challenges, but for the first time in years I felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that justice would prevail and karma would have its say. As Dean was led away in handcuffs, his defiant glare burned into my memory, a stark reminder of the battles yet to come. But I knew, with Meredith by my side, we would face those battles head-on, armed with the strength of our bond and the conviction that righteousness would triumph over cruelty. The confrontation had been won, but the war was just beginning. The days leading up to the trial were a whirlwind of activity as our legal team worked tirelessly to assemble the damning evidence against Dean. The weight of his crimes was staggering. Financial exploitation, elder abuse, and a litany of other offenses that painted a picture of a man consumed by greed and selfishness. As I sat in the courtroom, surrounded by the solemn faces of the jury, I couldn't help but steal a glance at Dean. His once confident demeanor had been replaced by a sullen, hollow expression, a far cry from the arrogant man who had so brazenly exploited his own mother. Meredith, her strength bolstered by the unwavering support of our legal team, took the stand with a grace and determination that belied her frailty. As she recounted the years of neglect and manipulation at the hands of her son, her voice rang out with a clarity that seemed to pierce the very soul of the courtroom. "He was always a difficult child," she said, her gaze unwavering as she locked eyes with Dean. "But I never imagined he would stoop so low as to exploit his own mother's illness for personal gain." Dean's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing into a defiant glare. But Meredith remained steadfast, her words carrying the weight of a lifetime of pain and disappointment. "I trusted him," she continued, her voice thick with emotion. "I trusted him to care for me, to honor the sacrifices I made as a mother. But instead he saw me as a means to an end, a source of wealth and convenience to be exploited." The courtroom fell into a hushed silence, the gravity of Meredith's testimony hanging heavily in the air. Even Dean seemed momentarily subdued, his usual bravado faltering in the face of his mother's searing indictment. As the trial progressed, the weight of the evidence against Dean became insurmountable. Financial records, witness testimonies, and a mountain of documentation painted a damning portrait of a man driven by greed and manipulation. Throughout it all, Dean maintained a veneer of defiance, lashing out at the prosecution and attempting to discredit the testimony against him. But his efforts were futile, his desperate attempts to cling to control only serving to further underscore the depth of his depravity. In the end, the verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. As the judge handed down Dean's sentence, a hush fell over the courtroom. For years he had operated under the delusion that his actions would go unchecked, that he could exploit and manipulate without consequence. But in that moment, the reality of his crimes came crashing down upon him, his facade of entitlement and arrogance stripped away to reveal the pathetic, desperate man beneath. As the bailiffs led him away, his eyes met mine for a fleeting moment, and in that instant, I saw a glimmer of something I had never witnessed before. Fear. Fear of the consequences he had brought upon himself, fear of the reckoning that had finally caught up to him. It was a fear born not only of the legal repercussions, but of the knowledge that his own mother had been the one to deliver the final blow, shattering the illusion of control he had so desperately clung to. In the aftermath of the trial, Meredith and I found solace in the knowledge that justice had been served. The weight of Dean's cruelty had been lifted, and a newfound sense of freedom washed over us. As we embraced, tears of relief streaming down our faces, I couldn't help but marvel at the strength of the bond we had forged, a bond that had withstood the tempest of Dean's manipulation and emerged victorious. "We did it," Meredith whispered, her eyes shining with a clarity I had seldom witnessed. "We showed him that karma always wins in the end." In that moment, I understood the true power of our shared journey, a journey that had transcended the boundaries of family and circumstance, forging an unbreakable bond rooted in love, resilience, and an unwavering belief in the triumph of justice over cruelty. As we looked ahead to the future, unburdened by the specter of Dean's malice, I knew that our bond would endure. A testament to the indomitable spirit that had carried us through the darkest of times, and a beacon of hope for all those who dared to stand against the forces of greed and exploitation. Karma had spoken, and in its wake a new chapter was about to begin. The aftermath of Dean's sentencing was a whirlwind of activity, as Meredith and I set about reclaiming the life that had been so cruelly disrupted by his greed and manipulation. With the legal proceedings behind us, we were finally free to forge a new path, unburdened by the weight of his cruelty. The first order of business was securing Meredith's well-being. Utilizing the assets that had been rightfully restored to her, we spared no expense in ensuring she received the highest quality of care. A team of dedicated professionals was assembled, and a state-of-the-art home health setup was established, complete with around-the-clock nursing and all the amenities necessary to provide Meredith with the comfort and dignity she deserved. As the weeks passed, I witnessed a remarkable transformation in Meredith. The cloud of fear and uncertainty that had once hung over her seemed to lift, replaced by a newfound sense of peace and contentment. Her moments of lucidity became more frequent, and in those precious instances, the true depth of her resilience shone through. "Look at us, Avery," she would say, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of joy and disbelief. "Who would have thought that we'd come out on the other side of this, stronger than ever?" Her words never failed to fill me with a sense of awe and admiration. This woman, who had endured the unimaginable betrayal of her own son, had emerged from the ashes of that trauma with a grace and fortitude that humbled me to my core. As for Dean, his name became a taboo subject in our household. The mere mention of him carried the weight of 1,000 wounds, a reminder of the pain and suffering he had inflicted upon us. In those rare moments when his specter loomed, Meredith would simply shake her head, a sad smile playing upon her lips. "He made his choices," she would say, her voice tinged with a hint of pity, "and now he has to live with the consequences." It was a sentiment that resonated deeply with me, a testament to the power of karmic justice and the indomitable strength of the human spirit. In the months that followed, our bond only grew stronger, forged in the fires of our shared struggle and tempered by the triumphs we had achieved together. We became more than just caretaker and patient. We were family, bound by a love and respect that transcended blood ties. As Meredith's health stabilized, we began to explore the world beyond the confines of her home, venturing out on small excursions that filled us both with a sense of wonder and freedom. Every outing was a celebration, a reminder of the precious moments we had fought so hard to reclaim. On one such outing, as we strolled through a beautiful park, Meredith paused, her gaze fixed on a family playing nearby. A wistful smile tugged at her lips, and she turned to me, her eyes shining with a depth of emotion that took my breath away. "This is what it's all about, Avery," she said softly. "These moments, these precious flashes of joy and love, that's what makes life worth living." In that instant, I understood the true weight of her words. Our journey had been fraught with pain and heartache, but it had also forged an unbreakable bond, a testament to the power of love and resilience in the face of adversity. As we continued our walk hand in hand, I couldn't help but a sense of profound gratitude wash over me. The road had been long and arduous, but we had emerged victorious, our spirits tempered by the fires of our shared struggle. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, united by a bond that could never be broken, a bond forged in the crucible of karma's reckoning and strengthened by the indomitable spirit that had carried us through the darkest of times. The future stretched out before us, a tapestry of endless possibilities, and as we looked ahead, I saw not just a new beginning, but a life filled with hope, love, and the unwavering belief that justice would always prevail over cruelty. For in the end, karma had spoken, and its voice would echo through the ages, a testament to the enduring power of righteousness and the indomitable strength of the human spirit.
"If a company can't even help people, I'll quit on my own accord. Fire me. I am care. I know I have a tendency to get too heated. I'm aware of it, truly. But the words from the CEO in front of me were absolutely unacceptable. My name is Dylan. I work in sales for a security firm. I always wanted to be a police officer and even took up boxing because of it. However, due to certain reasons, I had to give up on the dream. But now, I'm satisfied because I can work in security, protecting people. However, I must admit I've never gotten used to the daily packs of ways. Being a big guy, I'm always concerned about getting in people's way. Even today, I tried to make myself smaller, taking up as little space as possible on the train. Today, I was heading to a business meeting at a newly opened office. My boss was supposed to accompany me, but he'd sent word he'd be coming straight from an out-of-town trip, so I was alone on the train. Unlike the morning rush, it was slightly less crowded in the afternoon, so I was able to get a seat. Thinking I'd review some details about the client, I reached into my bag. That's when I heard it. "Leave me alone. I've told you I'm not interested." A clearly distressed woman's voice caught my attention. Looking over, a young woman who looked like a college student was being approached by a blonde, slick-looking guy. "What's your problem? I told you I'd pay you good money. What's the catch? Trying to up the price? You're greedier than you look." "It's not about that. I just don't trust you, that's all." "Well, despite my humble request, you get carried away, stupid girl." Before I knew it, the man grabbed her wrist, attempting to pull her towards him. "Help! Somebody, please." She frantically looked around for help. Without thinking, I intervened, placing myself between the two. I stepped forward to shield her, looking down at the man. Given my tall stature and strong build, I posed a bit of a threat to him. "What are you doing to this lady?" "None of your business. Move out of the way." The man tried to grab me, but I swiftly brushed off his hand and sidestepped. Unable to stop himself, the man clumsily tumbled to the floor. "What the hell? I didn't do anything. Just dodged." "This is a public space, you know. Avoid causing a scene and bothering other passengers." I then checked on her. She looked shocked but thankfully didn't appear injured. What happened here? Suddenly, a conductor came in a hurry. Just as we were at the station, the door opened and the man made a quick escape. "Are you both okay?" Hearing the conductor's voice, I turned to her, and she bowed her head towards us. "Yes, thank you." Her face softened with relief. She seemed cool at first, but her smiling face looked somewhat youthful. Judging by her attire, I guessed she was a college student, and that seemed about right. "Do you know that guy?" "Well, he's been bothering me a bit about work. I never thought he'd resort to violence, especially in such a confined space. I'm sorry to ask this, but can we get a statement from you? It's protocol." At the apologetic tone of the conductor, we both nodded. It looked like we'd be questioned at a station near her residence. I'd probably be late for my meeting, but it couldn't be helped. I quickly texted my boss and put my cell phone back in my bag. She's a junior at a nearby private college, and her name is Lisa. After talking with her for about an hour, she'd asked for my contact info. I was concerned about a business meeting, so I handed Lisa my business card and quickly headed to the site. By the time I reached the client, the meeting had already ended. My boss gave me an earful, but I was content that I could help someone. I hadn't given much thought to what would happen next. The next morning, as I got off the train and passed through the turnstile, there was Lisa. We made eye contact, and I nodded an acknowledgement. She approached me. "Good morning, Dylan. Thank you for yesterday." "Oh, good morning. Everything okay after that?" "Yes, I got home safely. There's something I want to tell you about that, okay? There's something I want to tell you about. The situation on the train got spread on social media, and that guy, Jake, has been ridiculed. There are some pretty harsh comments. He seems really mad on social media. Jess, there might be some retaliation. Please be careful, Dylan. I just wanted to tell you that." It seemed that was all Lisa wanted to share. She nodded and then quickly left. She has this mysterious vibe, different from the usual bubbly college girls I often see. She gives off a cool impression. She's much younger than me, but I feel like I can't defy her. Despite her stoic demeanor, there's something charming about her. When I arrived at the office, my boss immediately approached me. "Dylan, the CEO wants to see you. Head there now." My boss's tone was cold. He's probably upset about me being significantly late to the client meeting yesterday. I bet the CEO is talking about that too. I felt uneasy, but had no choice, so I quickly headed to the CEO's office. "Dylan, I heard there was an incident on the train yesterday." That was the first thing the CEO said. Our CEO, the second generation in charge, is a laid-back sort of fellow, more like a spoiled young master than anything. He might seem a little unreliable as a CEO of a security firm. I haven't had much to do with him, so I don't know him too well. I nodded in response to his words, and he seemed a bit distressed. Well, the situation has blown up on social media, and it's become problematic. What do you mean by problematic? I don't think I did anything wrong. Well, yes, but the CEO's words were slurred, and he seemed evasive while saying, "This is troublesome." The way he kept sneaking glances at me was a tad bit irritating. "Did you have our company badge on? That's why I've been identified, and the other party is furious. They're lodging a complaint." "What? You mean the guy who was about to get violent with Lisa?" "Mind your words. That man is the son of one of our major clients. He claims you embarrassed him and has complained through the company. We have to think about your situation since they are a significant client. We can't just ignore this. How about a transfer, just for a few years?" "Transfer? Where to?" "It's a bit far, but we've just secured a contract for facility security in Nebraska. It's a bit out of your usual job scope, but it was you who caused this issue after all," the CEO said with a half smile. I realized this was likely a demotion. Even though he knew their demands were unreasonable, he seemed willing to sacrifice me to smooth things over. We can't have an employee causing issues working at the headquarters. You understand. But all I did was try to help. Your intentions were noble, but they've done their research on you. Your father, he's a criminal, right? My heart sank at the CEO's words. It's true, my father is in prison. He's divorced from my mom, and I've cut ties with him. Still, the truth haunts me. Because of my father, my mom and I had to move away from our hometown. I've recently been able to spend my time peacefully. However, the weight of society's prejudice is still heavy. I thought you had kept it hidden well until now, but if I had known that, I would never have hired you in the first place. Still, you should feel lucky you weren't fired. I've cut ties with my father, so he has nothing to do with me. I'm offended. Even if you say so, others might not see it that way. Having you in the main office causes various problems. Your very presence harms the company. Why did I have to hear all this? I clenched my fist tightly. Seeing my reaction, the boss looked at me with disdain and spoke. "Resorting to violence. No wonder people say sons of criminals are just trouble waiting to happen. What's this about wanting to help people? In the end, people like you can't do anything." I felt my blood boil at his words. If I punched him now, I'd be playing right into his hands. If I hurt him, it might become an assault case. I clenched my teeth and bore it silently. I closed my eyes and counted to 6 in my head. Doing that helped me calm down just a bit. Taking a deep breath, I summoned all my strength and shouted, "If this is a company that can't help people, then I quit. Fire me or whatever. Getting too heated is one of my bad habits. I know it, but still, the words of the boss in front of me were something I could never forgive. After being told by the CEO to get out, I left the company and was heading to the train station. Wondering what to do next, I went to a bookstore near the station. While flipping through a job magazine, a woman approached me. "Oh, Dylan, aren't you supposed to be at work?" "Hi, it's nice to see you again, Lisa." Lisa was the one who called out to me. As she looked up at me, she had a few complicated books and a fashion magazine in her hands. She gave off a mysterious vibe, but looked her age, which gave me butterflies. "Job magazine? Are you changing jobs?" "Yeah, kind of. Is it because of what happened yesterday?" At Lisa's words, I tried to play it cool, but I couldn't. My friends often joke about how easily readable I am, calling me an open book. I'm not good at hiding things. "I'm sorry. It's my fault, isn't it?" No, it's my fault. Some family issues came up, and I decided to quit. You mean your wife? No, I'm single. It's my dad. But never mind that. So, I thought I might look for a new job. I have some savings, so I'll be fine for a while. Lisa looked down, deep in thought. Then suddenly, looking up, she gazed deep into my eyes. Dylan, how about becoming a bodyguard? What? Caught off guard, before I knew it, she had grabbed my hand and was leading me somewhere. I found myself in an office room. What's this place? My company. What? But aren't you a college student? Starting a business in college, isn't that rare, right? She then guided me to a sitting area partitioned off in the corner of the room. Several people were working in the office, the sound of keyboards clicking away. She spoke briefly with someone in the back and then turned back to me. Well, I'm technically the CEO here. Started this company a while back, turned a profit here and there, and now we've grown big enough to have this office space. We develop apps targeted at young women, and I guess we made about $50 million last year. We're a legit business, so we offer decent benefits, health insurance, and all that jazz. Whoa, hang on a sec. You're going too fast for me to keep up. Oh, I'm sorry. Would it help if I start from the beginning? Oh, Lisa, don't you think you should do something about that habit of yours of going off on tangents? While I was racking my brain, a slender man with glasses brought me a cup of coffee. Nice to meet you. I'm Luke. I co-own this place with my sister. Think of this place as a co-working space. I heard about you from my sister yesterday. Thank you for helping out. You're welcome. Lisa can be a bit blunt and has had her share of troubles. As her brother, I worry about her. Do you really need to explain all this now? Lisa looked slightly annoyed as she shot her brother a glance. The familiar vibe between the siblings made me chuckle a bit. To be honest, I've always hoped she'd have someone to look after her. She's a genius, and many companies are after her. It would be a disaster if someone took forceful ways on her, like what happened yesterday. We would be so grateful if someone like you could serve as her bodyguard. A genius? Yes. Call me a proud brother, but she's been involved in app development for years. Last year, she released a photo editing app that became a huge hit, and there are several others. As Luke listed the apps, I realized I had heard of them. I knew she was talented, but I had no idea she was this accomplished. I was at a loss for words. We'd like to formally hire you. Would you consider it? I mean, I'm very honored. I just lost my job, so I'd gladly accept. When I replied, Luke reached out for a handshake. And here I am. Lisa, sitting in the corner of the couch, looked a bit sulky, but in this moment, she looked endearing. We then discussed how I would operate as Lisa's bodyguard. I'd drive her to and from work, and when there are company errands, we'd go together. Other times I'd take on some light chores around this office. Even though I'm older, Lisa is technically my superior, so I decided to be respectful towards her. But she told me to be at ease. She said it makes conversations more straightforward. I'm not great with polite expressions, so I was grateful for that. Our main concern is about Jake, right? Why is he after you? Lisa frowned with a hint of annoyance and responded. Jake's the third son of a pretty reputable company. His older brothers are outstanding, but he seems to know he's not up to par. He thinks that if he can't achieve much during college, he won't be the successor. So he targeted me. He probably believes that if he can take over my company, all the profits will be his. If he can't maintain the app, he'll plummet in no time. He wants to take over the company. I asked. Exactly. At first, he tried to sweet talk, almost like a honey trap. When that didn't work, he started to harass. He's so childish and persistent. It's irritating. We go to the same school, and I've heard nasty rumors about him, so I've been wary. Lisa sighed deeply. showing her genuine distress. Harassment like what exactly? I asked. Spreading weird rumors at school, cyberbullying on social media, and then there are these threats, she said, showing me a large number of threatening letters. They contain some pretty vulgar words. I know a detective. Maybe we can consult him, I suggested. Really? But do you think it's something we should take to the police? She asked. It's better to have a record of these things. Let's gather evidence, I said. I called up an old high school buddy of mine, John. We don't meet often because he's super busy, but he's one of the few friends I still keep in touch with. I reached out, and he quickly responded, willing to listen. He hasn't changed much since high school. Back then, we were buddies on the same wrestling team. It felt nostalgic, but there was no time for reminiscing. This is the threatening letter. There's a lot. It comes to the office almost daily, but this alone might not be enough. It would be good if we can pin the cyberbullying on him, but if he's using multiple fake accounts, it's going to be tough, John said. Is that so? He almost assaulted her, you know. Isn't that enough? I asked. Almost isn't good enough. If I hadn't stepped in. Well, if you hadn't stepped in back there, who knows what would have happened to her? Isn't that just hindsight? You didn't do anything wrong, John said with a chuckle. His words felt like a lifeline. I realize I've been unknowingly bothered about losing my job because of that incident. Lisa smiled at me too. Exactly. I might have gotten punched and hurt, and thanks to Dylan, I was safe. I'm truly grateful. Thanks, both of you, she said. As I spoke, they both nodded in agreement. By the way, there's a strange rumor about Jake. Can we discuss it? Lisa asked as she pulled out a file from her bag. It was something I'd never seen before, and I tilted my head curiously. I was being consulted by my friend. Could you take a look at this? The document Lisa presented contained a pamphlet from some company and a printed screenshot of a cell phone display. John's expression changed dramatically as he went through it. Lisa, can you gather more evidence? This is a serious crime, he said. His earlier gentle smile was now gone. His eyes blazed with intensity, resembling a detective chasing a criminal. Lisa, unafraid of John's intensity, smirked confidently. Of course. Leave it to me, she said. Some days later, I found myself at a local diner eating pancakes alone. The pancakes, topped with whipped cream, may not have seemed like my style, but hey, I liked them. Sipping my hot chocolate, I strained my ears to catch every word from the conversation between the man and woman behind me. So, Lisa finally coming around? The man asked. Sometimes it's better to delegate than do everything yourself. I wanted to tell you that I've been wanting to introduce you to trustworthy people to collaborate with in your business, the woman replied. Thank you. I'm curious to know more. I'm also interested in your other ventures, the man said. Other ventures? The woman asked. Yes, a friend told me I have a lot of things I want. You know, I would like some more money. Hi, I get you, no worries. It seems like she got his attention. I had heard Jake attended the same university as Lisa. I thought he was smart, but perhaps I overestimated him. Jake, with his flamboyant looks, handed Lisa a green pamphlet while talking smoothly. It was the same one John had seen at the police station. Jake's voice became noticeably quieter and more discreet. I've got this business where we call various speakers for seminars, kind of like study sessions. There's an initial membership fee, but if you introduce friends, you get some cash back. And don't worry, it's not some weird cult or something. We don't push products on you. The very fact he had to clarify it wasn't some weird cult was suspicious. I wondered if what he was doing was even legal. Looking at the brochure, Jake seemed eager to explain the profitable strategies, the kind of people you can meet, success stories, and such. He seemed unaware that Lisa was becoming indifferent, only offering half-hearted responses. Additionally, he chatted on about private stocks and foreign currency investments. Meanwhile, Lisa was amusing herself by wetting a paper bag for a straw and watching it wriggle. Either Jake didn't notice, or something was off with him. So, what do you say, Lisa? Will you join? Do you have any videos or something about the seminar? Send me the link. I'd like to see it before deciding. I'm considering it though, seriously. I'll send it right now. Jake was in a good mood and operating his phone. Soon enough, a notification sound indicated that a video had been shared in the group chat between Lisa, John, and me. The seminar's content was very sketchy. "Hell, you're Jake, right?" Suddenly, a soft, tenor voice broke the silence. With a friendly smile, John and another detective appeared next to where Lisa and Jake were seated. "We'd like to have a word with you. Mind accompanying us?" John reached into his pocket, flashing his police badge. "You seem to have had quite an interesting conversation earlier. We'd love to hear more." "What? Could it be you?" Jake seemed suspicious of the undisturbed Lisa, or had noticed something. In no time, his face turned red, and he lunged at her. I instinctively moved and slid myself between Lisa and Jake. Jake's fist hit my cheek, but it was just a slight jolt and not really painful. Such a loosely thrown punch had no effect. I stared into Jake's eyes and smirked. He let out a pitiful squeak and tried to pull his right hand away, but I firmly grasped his wrist. "Ah, you're that guy from..." "Yeah, I'm the one who lost my job because of you." "Whoa, I'm Lisa's bodyguard now, so you punched me, huh?" "That's right, arrested on the spot for assault. Maybe I'll take my time hearing about the other stuff. Ready for what's coming." One would let their guard down with Chan's gentle demeanor, but he's dozens of times scarier and stronger than me. Being glared at by him, it seemed Jake lost all will to resist. "Man, there was no need for you, a civilian, to get punched. If I had been the one, we could have charged him with obstructing an officer." "I messed up, sorry." "Ha, just kidding. Honestly, you helped. I bet we can now trace back to all the culprits. It's amazing no more victims were hurt. It's thanks to you." Saying that, John raised his right hand and straightened his back. He saluted me, giving his respects. John knew the reason I couldn't become a cop. We had promised to pursue it together, but it didn't come true, and he knew the bitterness I felt. Still, the fact that he remained a friend meant everything to me. My father was deceived by someone and got arrested. He had unknowingly become a courier for a particular crime. Being ignorant is almost as if it's a crime, and he couldn't just excuse himself by saying he didn't know. Even now, he's regretting his past behind bars. I knew that police departments look into the criminal history of family members, so believing I couldn't pass with my father in jail, I never tried. It's my life's only regret. Having turned 30, I can't become a cop anymore, and yet John saluted me with such respect. I was touched by his gesture and bowed my head in gratitude. "Thank you," John said. Then he climbed into a squad car and drove away. Some time later, news broke about the arrest of a large scam group. From college students to working adults, many had fallen into their web of deceit. There was a surge in the number of victims, especially among college students, and helplines were broadcasted on TV. As for me, I'm working as a bodyguard in Lisa's company. But hardly anyone causes trouble like Jake did. I've mostly been tidying up the office today. The window panes are gleaming, the floor is shiny, and I even wiped down the guest sofa. Lately, I've taken a liking to cleaning and even watched cleaning tutorials on YouTube after work hours. Cleaning can also be a form of exercise, so it's killing two birds with one stone. Lisa, reflecting on recent events, is enthusiastic about developing an app to help women easily send out SOS signals. She also mentioned organizing an awareness event in college to prevent scams. She's currently on her college break and is fervently working on her computer in the office every day. I have no idea what she's doing, but I believe she's creating something fantastic. Since then, I have realized that there are as many forms of justice as there are people. Becoming a cop and catching bad guys isn't the only way to protect people. Like Lisa, developing tools for self-defense or raising awareness to avoid scams is also protecting people. Protecting her and creating a safe workspace also contributes to that goal. In my own way, in my own place, I'll uphold my sense of justice. With that in mind, today too, I'll enjoy my cleaning-cum exercise routine.